good.
All right, hey guys, we're back in the garage with the 64 Beetle here that I picked up a few days ago. Today we're gonna do a will it run. If you haven't gone and watched the original video of the rescue I did on this, go back and watch that one first. But today, we're gonna see if we can get this engine running. All I'm gonna do is throw a 6-volt battery in there and swap out the coil. For some reason, it's got a 12-volt coil on it, which made me believe initially it was a 12-volt car. Then I started looking at everything else, the voltage regulator, the light bulbs, the blinker relay, everything's 6 volts. So at some point somebody had a 12-volt coil on there. I'm not sure if that would have worked or not. I'm gonna swap that out right away because I don't like that. We'll see what it does. If it pops off and runs, great. If not, we'll dig into the carburetor, we'll look into the ignition. I think first what I'm going to do though is we're going to pull the spark plugs and look at the condition of those. So before we do the plugs, I'm gonna throw this 6-volt battery in and just see if it turns over first. I've got the battery just sitting on a little stool here because there is no floor in the back. Ugh. That's positive, yep. Positive. Negative. I'm gonna turn the key and see what happens. Here we go. Okay, I've got a light on the dash. That's a good sign. I'm gonna pull the number 1 spark plug here. See what it looks like. Here's our number 1, not too bad. It's a little oily, but it's not bad at all. I cleaned it up on the wire wheel, so we'll do that with all 4 of them. Cylinder number 2, that looks pretty good. All right, so that's number 3, which is really weird because that looks brand new. The other spark plugs looked fairly new. I didn't check the brands on the other one. Champion L86C. What that tells me maybe is that this number 3 spark plug was not firing at all. Let's see what number 4 looks like when they had it running, or maybe a new spark plug was just added into number 3. All right, this one looks really clean or really lean. It's almost like it was firing barely. So I feel like at some point somebody tried to get this going and it was definitely misfiring for whatever reason, probably an ignition issue. It's got a 12-volt coil on it, and it's definitely a 6-volt car, so something's going on there. We'll definitely go through all that. I've got the 6-volt coil. We'll definitely look closely at the distributor. I want to check my firing order. I think next, let's make sure these wires are in the right order. I'm going to pop the valve cover on the passenger side and make sure we can find where number 1 is. So I've got our timing marks lined up. Let's pop this distributor off and see. So the firing order is 1432. Okay, let's pop this off. All right, the rotor. Okay, the rotor is pointing to number 1. Okay, so that's, all right, so that's, if that's number 1, then this should be 4. Okay, that's right. Okay, so 1, 4, 3, and 2. Okay, So this is right, and the rotor is pointing to number 1. So that's right. I'm just gonna double check and make sure we're not 180 out, making sure that the number 1 cylinder is actually on the compression stroke. All right, we're under here. We're gonna pull this valve cover off. That doesn't look too bad at all. All right, so let's see. Yep, fill some play there. All right, so I decided to pull off the driver's side valve cover just to check that one out and check this out. That is not good. So I'm trying to see if the push rod is bent. It seems okay, but I think what it is just a stuck valve. So I'm gonna have to take this rocker arms off and pull out and see if I can hammer that valve loose with the rubber mallet. I got this one off and I was able to pound on that spring to try to get it loose, to get that valve out, and it would not pop. And this one, check this out, it just spins. It's completely stripped. Yeah, that's bad. And it won't tighten up either. So something goofy was going on here, whether those were retapped and now they've stripped out. So yeah, this motor needs to come out, unfortunately, and I need to pull those heads and then do some closer looking. So yeah. So I think at some point this car was probably parked because of that valve. So it was missing bad. Somebody realized that maybe at some point the valve was bad and they parked it. And then it looks to me like somebody at one time tried to get it running again. They threw new spark plugs in it and maybe ran it, and it was running on 3 cylinders again. And that's why that number 3 spark plug is completely clean. So I think at this point, unfortunately, but I think it's probably a good idea anyway, this engine needs to come out and I need to pull the heads off, look at the cylinders, probably put new heads on there with the right studs. But I was hoping to get it running today, but unfortunately that doesn't look like it's gonna happen. Sorry guys. Okay, so while we're contemplating the taking the rocker arms out of the head, I got the shifter working. I put a new bushing in the back, which I'll show you in a second. But yeah, first, second, third, and fourth. So it seems to be shifting in all the gears. Reverse, first, second, third, and fourth. And let's go back there. And first, second, third, and fourth. So yeah, I was real happy about that. This morning though, I was hoping everything would be good. Just kind of recap what we discovered here. So after going through the basics here with this motor and taking a look at those spark plugs, we could see that the number 3 cylinder was not firing at all. Somebody had recently tried to get this running, it looks like, put new plugs in, and it is completely clean in the number 3, which tells me, okay, well, we're getting a misfire there. So I pulled the valve covers and we saw that one of the valves was stuck down. I tried getting that knocked loose, couldn't do it. I also noticed that the bolts that hold down the rocker arms are not correct. Those are supposed to be studs, from what I know, and they should have a nut on there. Now, okay, you look at it further and you've got one of those bolts is completely stripped out. It was tight, I was able to loosen it, and then once it broke loose, it just spun in there. So that tells me that maybe it was a retap job that wasn't done very well, and that the threads just sprung loose, just went loose. And now it's just kind of hanging in there. So I'm thinking this motor's got to come out. All right, so at this point, I think what we're gonna do is just pull this engine out of here. We'll get the heads pulled off and really see what's going on there. And maybe I need to put new heads on it if we've got a bent valve in there or something like that, and the where the studs thread in is completely gone. We'll want to put new heads on it, and maybe that'll be better anyway. But I want to look at the condition of the engine further than the heads too, like look at the pistons and all that. So guys, stick around. This should be fun. Now that the engine is out, I've got the cylinder head off. I had to cut the head of that bolt to get the rocker arm off, and then you can see here how that valve is just stuck out. I haven't tried to mess with it or anything, but I got a new head on there. I got I sourced out 2 used heads and threw the one on there that I thought was the best. Okay, so we've got the head back on the driver's side, the one that had the stuck valve. I went ahead and replaced my push rod tubes and painted up some of the tins. But what I'm gonna do now is for passenger side, cylinder 1 and 2, I wanna replace those push rod tubes on that side too. It just doesn't make sense doing push rod tubes on one side and not the other. So I'm pulling this head off right now. Got a bunch of parts up here. First, we've got to take off the exhaust, the heater boxes here. So from what I've learned and the research I've done, this bolt that goes through here is a repair kit that was offered quite a few years ago. I guess these 1200 heads were pretty, it was pretty common for the stud to strip out of the head. So this is a repair kit where you put an insert into the head, and then these bolts are used to hold down the rockers. So it is a thing, and it seems to work well when it works. But I've got the other side on and repaired, and that valve is moving. So let's get this set of rocker arms off, and we'll pull this head, and that way we can get those new push rod tubes in. Got a piece of cardboard here to keep track of the push rods themselves. That way we don't keep these guys in the same cylinder. Time to pull the head off. And got all the push rod tubes out. We'll get the new ones in. But first I'm gonna clean all this up. Clean the head inside just a bit. And we'll go ahead and put it back in. All right, now that we've got everything sort of cleaned up here, I'm gonna slide that head back on. And we're gonna put our new push rod tubes in. Let's put our rocker arm back on. There we go. Now we'll get our torque wrench on there. I think it's like 15 foot-pounds, something like that. There we go. Cool. All right guys, so we're about to wrap this up. We've got the engine out here, it's ready to fire up. I removed both heads. We got that one head replaced that had the stuck valve. We messed with those rocker arms. We kind of figured out what was going on there with that repair kit that had been used on these 1200 heads. I've got the tins all painted up and cleaned up a bit since I had to take it apart anyway. New exhaust, new generator pulley, new flywheel pulley, belt, and we are running this now off a 12-volt coil. So let's get it fired up. thanks guys for coming back to the garage and watching the second video on this 64. Yes, it does run. No, it didn't run in the car. It probably would have. You know, I probably could have gotten it fired on 3 cylinders, but I didn't want to run it that way, and I plan on restoring this car, so perfect time to go ahead and pull the engine out. So what's next here? We've got this rear window that was all messed up from the first video. I showed you how the roof had been cut, and this side was sitting pretty low. So I found a new clip from a 63. And I've already gone ahead and got this. So this is ready to be welded in. And I'll show that closer in more detail in the next video. But yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Come back for the next one.